The clearing held a kind of stillness that did not belong to morning or evening, but to something older, something that had settled into the earth long before trees grew tall around it. Grass spread in uneven patches across the open ground, where sunlight poured down in a soft, pale wash. A few fallen branches lay half buried in moss, and the marks of old animal paths crossed through the clearing like faint scars. The air was quiet, not because nothing moved, but because everything moved softly. In the shadows beneath the undergrowth, a lynx watched. Its body lay low, muscles quiet but not slack, as though stillness was its natural shape. Its fur was thick and mottled in pale browns and grays, patterned to match the pattern of sunlight slipping through leaves. The lynx's ears, tufted at their tips, flicked once to catch a distant sound, then settled again. Its eyes, wide and amber, were fixed on the clearing, not with hunger and not with fear. Just attention. Pure, unwavering attention. Silence sat with the lynx like a companion. The clearing was not empty. A few small birds hopped through the grass, pecking at seeds. A squirrel crossed the open space in a nervous rush, tail flicking. A small creek whispered somewhere just beyond the tree line. But none of these stirred the lynx. It was not waiting for prey. It was not hunting. It was simply watching the world in the hour before purpose begins. The lynx had lived in this forest for many seasons. It knew where the deer slept when the wind was cold. It knew where the snow collected deepest beneath the north side of the ridge. It knew where owls nested and where foxes passed through, leaving their scent woven into the ground. This clearing, though, was something different. It was a place the lynx returned to even when hunger was not calling it. The clearing was where quiet things came to rest. Once, long before winter turned the world white, the lynx had lain in the clearing beside its mate. They had stretched their limbs across the sun-warmed grass, breathing slow, unhurried breaths. The lynx could still remember the warmth of that moment. Not sharp, not painful now, only something folded carefully into memory. The mate was gone, taken by illness in the deep snow months ago. The lynx had carried the body to the base of a pine where the roots were soft and the earth had not yet frozen. It had stayed there that night, keeping the last warmth close until it slipped away. The clearing had felt empty afterward, but emptiness was something the lynx had learned to share. Across the clearing, the brush rustled. A figure stepped into view, a human, a man, broad-shouldered, carrying an axe over one shoulder. He wore a coat patched many times and boots that had known years of use. His face was covered in stubble, his hair grown long beneath a wool cap. He stopped at the edge of the clearing, scanning the trees. The lynx did not move. The man did not see it. He stepped across the grass, heading toward a fallen tree that lay near the center of the clearing. He set down the axe and began to remove branches, working slowly, as though conserving strength. His movements were not loud, but they shifted the quiet, the way breath shifts still air. The lynx watched him the same way it watched the clearing, with awareness, not judgment. The man worked until his breath grew heavy. Then he paused, wiping his forearm across his brow. His eyes lifted toward the tree line. Not suspicious, not afraid, just thoughtful, as if he felt something watching him without needing proof. For a moment, the clearing seemed to hold its breath. The man looked straight toward the shadows, where the lynx lay, but he did not see. After a long, quiet moment, he gathered his wood and left the clearing, disappearing behind the trees. His footsteps faded. The clearing settled again. The lynx remained in place, slow breath moving through its ribs. It did not change expression. It did not sigh. It did not think of loss or purpose. It simply stayed where it was. Silence sat beside it, unbroken and whole. The clearing belonged to no one, yet everything belonged to it. And the lynx watched, the way it always had, with patience older than words. The days passed quietly, as days in deep forests often do, without urgency, without marking themselves clearly. The clearing changed only in small ways. A new patch of grass here, a fallen twig there, the slow shift of sunlight across the ground as the season edged forward. The lynx returned often, moving like a shadow slipping between branches, its paws leaving almost no imprint in the soft earth. One morning, frost still clung to the tips of the grass. The air held the pale blue chill that appears just before the sun rises fully. The lynx sat near the tree line, half hidden behind a tangle of young saplings. The clearing was quiet, but not empty. A roe deer stood near the center, head lowered as it fed on what fresh growth it could find. It was a young deer, its body slender, its fur still holding the pale warmth of winter's coat. It lifted its head now and then to scan the woods, ears flicking at distant sounds. The lynx watched, but not as hunter and prey. Hunger was not pressing that morning. The lynx's belly was full from a rabbit caught the evening before. The deer's presence was simply another shape of life, moving through the clearing, another part of the world that continued on its own rhythm. A breeze passed through carrying the faint scent of pine and distant smoke. The lynx's ear twitched. Smoke meant humans. Not far away, the sound of an axe striking wood echoed, dull, rhythmic, patient. The man was back, the same one who had crossed the clearing before. His work was steady but not rushed, the sound of someone who knew how to make use of the day without trying to conquer it. The deer lifted its head and froze. Its breath stilled. The clearing tightened in a single moment of silence. Then the deer turned, slipping away into the deeper woods. No panic, only instinct. The lynx remained where it was. Moments later, the man appeared again, moving from the far side of the clearing. He carried no axe this time, only a small wooden canteen secured by a leather strap. He walked slowly as if listening to the world more than moving through it. His steps did not carry the noisiness of fear or impatience. He reached the fallen log near the center of the clearing and sat. He rested his hands on his knees and looked out across the open ground, not searching, just looking. There were lines of tiredness around his eyes, not carved by suffering, but by work, by seasons, by time spent living close to weather and soil. The lynx watched him, as it always watched, but something in the man's stillness felt familiar. Not known, just understood. After a while, the man opened his canteen and drank slowly. When he finished, he set it beside him and closed his eyes. Not to sleep, just to let the morning be what it was. The clearing breathed. A jay called somewhere beyond the ridge. Frost melted drop by drop from the tips of grass. Light moved across the ground like a slow tide. The lynx shifted its weight, the faintest rustle. The man's eyes opened. He did not turn his head. He did not search the shadows. But a quiet awareness passed over his expression. The kind a person has when they know they are not alone and do not fear it. The clearing did not break. It held them both, creature and human, without choosing between them. The man stood, picked up his canteen, and walked back toward the trees. He did not look toward the lynx. The lynx did not step forward. Silence returned, not as emptiness, but as company. The clearing went on breathing, and the lynx remained in the shadows, where it belonged, watchful and calm. The weather warmed slowly, in the kind of careful progression that belongs to early spring. Snow at the base of the pines thinned day by day, retreating in small patches, leaving behind damp soil and darkened roots. Streams thickened their sound. Birds returned to branches they had left months before. Nothing changed suddenly, but everything changed. The lynx moved with the season. It no longer stayed only in the shadows. Sometimes it lay near the edge of the clearing where sunlight touched the ground, warming the fur along its spine. It did not sleep fully. Its ears remained alert, its eyes half open, but its body settled more easily now. The clearing had become a place of being, not waiting. One afternoon, the man returned again. This time, he carried something different. A small bundle wrapped in fabric, held carefully against his chest. He stepped out of the trees with more hesitation than before. His movements were slower, his breathing quieter. The lynx watched from beneath the low branches. The man knelt near the fallen log in the clearing and unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a fox fur, old, weathered, soft from years of handling. Not a trophy, not a kill. Something kept, something remembered. For a while he simply held it, fingers tracing the edges where the fur had worn thin. His expression did not break, but his shoulders lowered, his breath deepening, like someone remembering a story without speaking it. He placed the fur carefully on the log smoothing it once. Then he sat. Both he and the lynx were still. The clearing seemed to hold the moment in its palms. After a time, the man spoke. Not loudly, not to be heard by anything that did not choose to listen. She was small, he said, though no one had asked. Smaller than the others. Always ran a little ahead. Always came back when I called. His voice was steady, quiet. I buried her near the river. The ground was soft there, even in winter. He did not cry. He did not need to. The loss had already shaped itself inside him. The lynx's ears turned slightly, listening, not to the words, but to the tone, the weight beneath them. It knew grief not as memory alone, but as something that changes the quiet around a creature. It recognized it in the man the same way one recognizes shifting weather. The man leaned back, resting his hands on the ground behind him. He did not look toward the shadows, but his voice softened as if speaking to something present. "You stay here too," he murmured. "I can feel it." Not a question, not an invitation, only acknowledgement. A crow called overhead, sharp and clear. The sound broke the stillness gently, as if reminding both creatures that the world continued no matter what it held. The man stood after a while, folding the fur back into the cloth with the same care he had unwrapped it. He held it close again, but not possessively, just with understanding. He left the clearing the way he came, quiet, step by step, without looking back. The lynx emerged from the shadows only after the forest settled again. It walked to the center of the clearing and sat where the man had been sitting. It could still smell the fox fur, old sunlight, earth, winter wind. Not sadness, just presence. The clearing did not choose sides. It held both the living and the remembered with the same quiet care. The lynx lifted its head toward the tree line where the man had disappeared. Its breath moved slow and steady. The silence beside it did not feel empty. It felt shared. Clouds gathered over the forest the next day, thick and layered, the kind that dim the world without bringing rain. The clearing seemed paler under that muted light. Shadows lost their sharp edges. Trees stood like quiet shapes instead of tall figures. The wind moved only at the tops of branches, too light to reach the ground. It was the kind of day when the forest seemed to listen to itself. The lynx walked the perimeter of the clearing, paused silent on damp soil. Not searching, not hunting, just moving in the slow, deliberate way of an animal returning to something familiar without needing a reason. When it reached the fallen log, it paused, lowering its head to sniff the wood. The man's scent remained there, faint now, fading into the air, but still present enough to mark that he had been real. The lynx sat in the clearing's center, where it could see the entire space at once, ears flicking, breath steady. The clearing had held moments of many kinds: warmth, hunger, memory, and now something else. Something like understanding, though neither animal nor forest would name it. From the edge of the woods came the soft crack of a twig. The lynx did not tense. It simply turned its head. The man stepped into the clearing once more. This time he carried nothing. No tools, no bundle, no purpose that could be seen. His hands hung loosely at his sides. His walk was slower, as if he had been thinking for a long time and still had not reached the end of the thought. He saw the lynx. Not the idea of it, not the shape. The lynx itself. And he stopped. Not from fear, from respect. They stood like that, distance between them, neither closing it, two still figures in a world that did not need their movement to continue. The man sat first. He lowered himself to the grass with the same quiet patience the lynx had shown for weeks. He did not lean forward, did not make himself small, did not try to invite the animal closer. He simply occupied the clearing the way the lynx did, by existing in it without asking anything of it. The lynx blinked once, slowly. A long moment passed. The man spoke, but his voice was softer than before, as though shaped by the quiet around him. "My wife used to sit with me like this," he said, "not talking, just being." His gaze was on the ground, not on the lynx. Then she grew sick, and the house became too loud, even when no one was speaking. There was no tremor in his voice, no plea, only truth. The clearing accepted it. The lynx lowered its head, but did not break its gaze. The man continued, though not to explain, only to share the silence more deeply. "This place makes sense," he said. "Things come here to remember how to remain." The forest did not answer with sound. It answered by simply being there. The lynx rose slowly and took a few steps. Not toward the man, not away, just to lie down in a patch of grass slightly closer to the clearing's center. Its body stretched with quiet ease. Its tail curled near its flank. It settled. The man exhaled. Not relief, not joy, something quieter. They sat together like that for a long time. The wind descended from the treetops at last, brushing through the clearing in a slow, gentle wave. It lifted a few strands of the man's hair. It rippled the lynx's fur. It carried no message, no omen, just air, moving through a world that continued. Eventually, the man stood. He did not look directly at the lynx. He did not need to. He walked back toward the forest with the same slow steps he had arrived with. The lynx watched him go. Its breath moved in and out. Its ears stayed relaxed. Its body remained at ease. Silence sat beside it again. But now the silence was not loneliness. It was company. Soft, unspoken, steady. The first true green of spring began to show itself in the clearing. It did not arrive suddenly, but in small, careful touches. The tips of grass brightening, young leaves unfolding in pale curls, moss deepening in color where the soil stayed damp. The forest was waking, though softly, as though remembering how to return to life without disturbing the quiet that had settled through the cold months. The lynx lay in its familiar place at the edge of the clearing, where shade and light touched equally. Its fur, thick from winter, caught hints of gold where the sun reached between branches. It did not sleep. It rested the way wild things do, body still, senses open. The clearing breathed around it. A jay called once from a nearby tree, not sharp this time, but almost conversational, as if the forest had loosened its voice. The lynx flicked an ear, listening. The wind carried the scent of new growth, damp bark, a faint sweetness of sap rising. Footsteps approached, but not the careful pace of a hunter, not the rushed rhythm of someone crossing the woods with intent. These steps were slow, steady, familiar. The man came into view along the same path he had always taken. His shoulders looked lighter now, not unburdened, but no longer pulled down. He had trimmed his hair, and the lines on his face seemed less deep. He carried nothing. He stopped at the clearing's edge. The lynx watched him, amber gaze steady. He did not step closer. He simply lowered himself to the ground, sitting cross-legged in the grass. The same distance as before, the same quiet. But something was different. Not in the clearing, not in the forest. In him. His breathing was calm. They stayed like that. Two lives resting side by side, in the shape of the world they had both learned to endure. After a while, the man spoke, not to ask, not to explain, just to share the space. "My house is quieter now," he said. "Not in the way it was before, not empty, just quieter. Enough to hear things again." The lynx blinked slowly. "It's strange," he said, his eyes on the sky. "You think silence is loneliness until you learn how to sit with it." The wind moved through the clearing again, carrying fresh scents. A small butterfly drifted between them, pale wings trembling in the gentle air. It settled briefly on a blade of grass, then continued on. The lynx shifted only slightly, and lay with its paws stretched forward, rather than tucked beneath. It was a small thing, but it was not nothing. The man noticed. He did not smile, but his shoulders eased just a little more. No sudden moment came. No revelation. No bond declared. Just understanding, quiet and unforced. The clearing did not ask for more. After some time, the man stood. He brushed the grass from his hands and turned to leave. But before he stepped into the trees, he paused and looked back. Not searching for the lynx, not confirming anything, just acknowledging. "I'll return," he said. Not a promise. A simple truth. He walked into the forest, his steps steady, his presence no longer heavy. The lynx remained in the clearing for a long time, listening to the wind, watching the way light shifted across the grass, feeling the world change without needing to move with it. Silence stayed beside it. But now, the silence felt alive.